Going the extra mile to get.
And after the first day, most teams were worried that their cars would outlast the terrain. The route was tough with two smaller loops of 120 k's and then a similar drive with a longer 40 k sting in the tail, tailor-made to break cars and morale. Not to mention the dust that was already causing visibility and mechanical trouble for drivers, navigators and team bosses. In the meantime, Nissan's Duncan Foss knew that starting at the front would leave him dust-free and relatively free of troubles.
Look, it's good to start in the front. We're not going to have a dust problem. Just got to keep it together, but just try and first hour not make too many mistakes, not make any mistakes, have a nice pace, get a good rhythm going, and hopefully try and keep the rest behind us.
ABSA's Benny Groenewald was getting a few pointers from the championship leaders, but for Kutsela Beskagni, there were some hasty drawn-up plans after a tragedy.
Well, unfortunately, my navigator Johan Gabbe had a tragedy. His house, accident, a fire, his house burned down virtually, and I can't expect of him not to be with his family and sort that things out there. Yes, but we are going to drive solo. I mean, many guys has done it in space frame cars, so I see no reason why we can't do it. Audrey Roots assured me that the course is very well marked, the cautions are very well marked, so I don't foresee any problems, but I'll just be going for a finish, and a lot of my fellow competitors has promised me that they will stop and actually assist me with when I get a flat wheel. So the sportsmanship is great, so we'll see where we go.
For Shamir Variawa, the rougher and tougher the better, and he did win the prologue after all.
It's rough, it's nice. I think it's ideally suited for the special vehicles. And yeah, I love the rough races, so hopefully we do well.
The first flag of the day dropped for Fossum Pitchford in the Nissan Navara, and the 2007 Sun City 400 was truly on the way with an impatient Grobler right on his tailgate. And Fossum Pitchford did not let the grass go under their wheels. They were off and running at the head of the field. The pair were off to a flyer, and well, they should have been with a menacing Grobler right behind them. The Nissan team were hoping for their 40th win in 51 events over the last 6 odd years, and Grobler was desperate to provide it. However, Sun City has not been a happy hunting ground for him of late. He took 5th here last year, and by the way Variawa was catching, it seemed that he was either taking it easy or Grobler was slowing. And the Total Motorsport driver was putting an immense amount of pressure on the 51-year-old. But he couldn't get past either. The Atlas Copco of the Harpers was rolling along smoothly. They were catching up to Variawa at a rate of knots. Their win in the Gluglue event proved that their move to the powerful and slick Atlas Copco backed outfit suited their racing style. But their teammates Gary Bertolt and Henry Costain were not going to let them have it all their own way. They had also closed the gap. The Barloworld Absolute Ford of Schroeder and Huxtable was next into view, and as they always do, the Ranger Dio was smooth and cautious without being slow. The Sulwalts and their Sulwalt Transport Zarko next charged past, up one position, with the roughness of the route a big boost for the space frame vehicles. The defending SP class champions Woolridge and Schultheimer were cracking it up too and were hoping for a start to the season after posting 2 DNFs. They were also moving up rapidly. Musaji and Bodhanya were still holding station in the top 10, with Herman Sulwalt and Mornay Miller in the second car right on their exhaust pipe. The big Rapsa bat of Noudis Alberts and Colin Hunter was 7th in class after the prologue and were racing hard for the top 10. With the father and son Rob and Gareth Walk in the Super Pave Special speeding along, but only to fall victim to a broken left front upright, which put paid to their challenge. But there wasn't a lot of breathing space. Rear-view mirrors had cars in them as far as the eye could see. The third Atlas Copco bat was being piloted by Archie Rutherford and his co Craig Doubtfire, and they were going well too. But the dust was playing havoc with overtaking and getting into engines and eyes. For Evan Hutchison, the new Motorite bat was a pleasure to drive, but they experienced 1 or 2 teething problems. Tollefson and Quinn were steady as she goes, but admittedly were playing a waiting game. The Regent outfit made a solid debut as Martian Groenewald sped by, already 5 places up from 21st overall, but the dust made it look like dusk at times. Their teammates the Cries were next, and they were shooting for a hat-trick of wins in Class B. Grenier and Birkin had fixed a power problem after finding a faulty coil, but started off rather cautiously, a fine tactic on this route. The Adenko lads, the Besaid Notes, were ploughing along looking for a podium in Class B. With Bevan Bertolt and Robin Houghton in the second Castrol Toyota ticking along, but almost ran into a stray special. Bertolt has been working like a Trojan at his fitness, but this time the car overheated and they had also lost the power steering, which made Bev overheat in turn. Eventually there was no other way. They had to stop and try to repair. In Class S, Schilling and Davies were making all the right moves. With Roacon head honcho Peter Ruthven and his co-driver Deval Boshoff right behind them, they too would fall by the wayside. The Lone Ranger Kutsia Labaskachny was steering and reading and doing a fine job of both. The Raysonics driver was up from 36th and into the top 25. But still letting the faster men through. Harkis and Moore did not have a happy start, and it continued as they struggled to find a semblance of rhythm. But for Kutsia, it got even worse than that. Ahead of him there was a traffic jam of note, as special and production cars all wrong-slotted in front of him. A little bit like the M1 on a Friday afternoon, more likely. And back we go, I say. The BB Auto Nissan outfit had 2 cars entered, and Arnold Duplessis and Johan Knox were 3rd in class. Thomas Rundle was going smoothly in Class E and leading with ease, pressurizing the rest. The Royal Blue Chevy with De Villiers and Prinsloo just led Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in their Toyota. They were 2nd in class. With a final few Ks left to complete lap 1, Foss and Pitchford found the rough northwest plains, valleys and rocks to their liking, and they were stamping down their authority. With Variawa just about a minute down and pushing as hard as the porter would let him. Cromler was experiencing suspension trouble, and the Navara wasn't quite performing the way the Burliness and Stalwart wanted it to. Berthold and Costain swept into third overall after their stablemates, the Harpers, had crashed into a rather large rock while trying to overtake Variawa. The Atlas Copco Porter sounded mean. And surprise, surprise, Cox raced in. He'd made up a staggering 14 places in just 120 kilometers. The SA champion was flying. Next, another great first lap was produced by Woolridge and Schulthammer, who clocked the fastest opening salvo of the race, a 1 hour and 42-minute effort, and that took them from 9th to 6th, and there was more to come. Musaji and Bodhanya were reveling in a new look car and a new position, up from 10th to 7th. And just far enough back for the dust to settle, our camera found the Silwalds holding station in 8th place. Alberts and Hunter were throwing the Rapsa bat around in order to complete the first lap. They were up to 6th in Class A, with the next Silwald car, that of Herman and Mornay Miller, right on their tailgate. Hutchison and his co-driver Kim Bergman were experiencing a few teething problems too with their new specification bat, mostly fuel starvation, which obviously affected them badly. Tollefson and Evans were trying to go as quickly as they could, but this Dakar Rally veteran knows how to nurse a car to the finish. That much was clear. Cronje and Birkin were applying the same philosophy in the Castrol Toyota Hilux, and their new car was settling in very nicely too. Marsh and Groenewald were flying the newcomer Regent Colours High in Class A, and the former Nasher Mobile driver was challenging. But then again, so was the territory. Just ask Richard Schilling, who's seen the worst ever. Even he was quoted as saying that the rate of attrition would be high. Michael Whitehouse, a former navigator, and his new co-Dean Langton, was all over Schilling. And at the end of Loop 1, the VIPs were being entertained, watching as the cars came by for the first look at the pits at high speed. Schroeder and Huxtable were checked and then sped on their way. For ABSA, this is the way to treat their clients.
Yes, the off-road series for us is definitely working. You know, firstly to say, being outdoors is always exciting, it's fun, it's a nice environment, and from a branding point of view, it increases our exposure. And obviously, also working for us from an investment point of view. We also use these events to bring some of our dominant dealers and our manufacturers to these events. And today here at Sun City, we've got over 200 dealers supporting us at this event. So obviously, a nice investment, and we've been involved in this investment for the last 6 years, and it's growing year to year.
In the meantime, sponsors, team management and spectators now have a way to keep track of each and every competitor by way of an immensely accurate GPS system.
Our idea from GPTech's point of view, in conjunction with Motorsport CC, was to be able to demonstrate live tracking for the sport of motorsport. What we've done is there are three elements. We looked at it from an official's point of view, and the most important element there was safety first. So the idea being that if a competitor gets into trouble, that we're able to see exactly where that competitor is and send out either the mechanical teams or the emergency services. The second element which we've done together with iAfrica is the public interface. That's to create a worldwide web interface so you can log on from anywhere in the world, literally, and you can be able to see what the competitors are up to on race day. The third element from the point of view of the competitors is to look at route adherence. What we do prior to the event is we put the route onto the system, and then with the live tracking devices we're able to see how the competitors do compared to what they're supposed to be doing.
The Sun City 400 continues after this.
Vehicle and asset finance from